Do you feel self-conscious in social situations? Are you often afraid that others are judging you? Do everyday interactions cause you significant anxiety or embarrassment? And has this fear gotten in the way of living your life? If you have social anxiety, you might feel hopeless that things will ever change, but you're wrong. Social anxiety is treatable, and today you'll learn my top 5 tips for creating a more relaxed and connected life. And I have to tell you, this episode is jam-packed with free tools and tips that you can start using today. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the podcast. You know me, Dr. Abby Medcalf. Wow, season 7. This is our second episode in season 7. We're getting close to episode 300 though, overall. And I have such a good cue coming for this season because you've all been writing to me on my break, telling me what you want to hear about. And this one for today got just a ton. So let's get to it. So many of you want to hear about this. So let's do this thing. So it's normal to be, of course, a little apprehensive, if you're starting a new job or a new school year or whatever, or you're going to speak in front of a bunch of people. It's also fine if you feel a little quiet at first in social situations. What's not okay are persistent fears of being judged by others to the extent that it affects your work, your school, your day-to-day tasks, and your relationships. If this is you, then you might have a social anxiety disorder or problem. So I want to give a clear disclaimer that if you think you have social anxiety disorder, you should absolutely seek out a qualified mental health provider. There's nothing that upsets me more than people watching a TikTok video and diagnosing themselves and then deciding on their own treatment. It makes me actually pretty crazy. It is so rare to do this with a physical disorder, but very common with mental health issues. So, for example, if you suspect you do have cancer, okay, you might look it up a little on Google, but you'd absolutely be going to see a specialist to get a proper diagnosis and treatment. However, people diagnose and treat their own mental health issues all the friggin' time. And I think it's because my field isn't always taken seriously and it's often dismissed as like a soft science. And I think there's a huge stigma about seeking out mental health treatment. So do not fall into this trap. I'll be giving you very clear information here today directly from reputable sources, as you know I always do. But please see a qualified mental health provider if at all possible. I know a lot of you out there, I started this podcast 7 years ago because I knew not everyone had access to evidence-based information and tools and tips that actually work. And that's why I started it, for great information to be accessible to all, because I'm looking to make world peace here. If everybody I felt like was better in their relationships and felt happier in their lives, of course, we wouldn't have a need for hate and bullying and bias and bigotry and all the rest. So that's what I'm trying to do here in my little corner of the world. But a lot of you, though, do have access to something and may just have some other reason why you're not seeking it out. And I'm going to really, really push for you to seek it out. Okay. So let's talk about, what is social anxiety disorder? And it's also known as SAD, which is the most appropriate acronym I've ever heard, right? Social anxiety disorder is SAD. It's also known as social phobia. And it's really a relatively common type of anxiety disorder. If you have social anxiety disorder, fear and anxiety have likely caused you, what I see the most is to avoid many situations and people in your life. And that leads to major disruptions in your relationships, work, school, daily routines, everything else. And these feelings and fears can show up in large or small ways. So here's what I see the most. People having a fear around meeting new people. So they avoid leaving the house. That's where we get agoraphobia and things where people just are inside. And of course, the more you do that, the scarier it is out there and the worse it gets. I have a lot of clients over the years who have feared leaving a job they hated, and that was horrible because they were afraid of starting a new one, needing to interview, to send out their resume, meeting all new coworkers again, having a new boss. It's so terrifying to them that they're staying in a really horrible position at work, which of course is making them more depressed and anxious. Again, we get in this never-ending cycle. Dating, a lot of fear around dating if you have social anxiety, of course. Starting a new class or going to a new school or anything like that, where you might be even something for fun, like maybe you want to take a pottery class or something, but you're afraid to go, even though it feels like something that'd be fun. Raising your hand in class or raising your hand in a meeting or being called on to answer a question in a work meeting or in class. Speaking to a cashier at a store, like avoiding grocery shopping or anything else because of the idea that you'd have to check out and speak to someone or interact. Canceling any kind of appointment. I have had clients who know days ahead that they can't make their eyebrow appointment and they won't cancel it. They feel like they can't call to cancel. So what they do is they just miss the appointment and they never go back to that place. I have one client who she was driving almost an hour away to get her eyebrows done because she had gone through, over the years, she had gone through so many more local places that did her eyebrows and she had to keep kind of going out. I'm using the eyebrows as the example here, and it can sound crazy to some people, but other people right now, you're listening, nodding your head going, I would do that. I wouldn't cancel a haircut appointment or whatever. Eating in front of or drinking in front of other people. That's a biggie. I see a lot. Using a public restroom. I see a lot. And I'm not just talking about pooping. I'm talking about peeing. People won't even pee somewhere outside, right? Not all of us are comfortable pooping everywhere. Am I? I don't know. Probably not as, well, I guess I'm kind of comfortable. But you know what I mean. Are we really talking about your poop, Abby? I'm here for some better information than, you pooping. Sorry about that. We're Jews. We like to talk about poop. I don't know what to tell you. All right. The big concern is somehow being judged, criticized, rejected, or humiliated. So avoidance becomes the usual coping skill. That's what I see the most. And I do want to give a quick little disclaimer also that introversion is not the same as social anxiety disorder. I did an entire episode on introversion and extroverts and their relationship to each other and all that. I was very clear in there. There is nothing pathological or wrong with being introverted. It's okay. This is not a diagnosis. And sadly, a lot of people who are introverted think they should be different, or extroverts are pushing introverts to be different. And that shouldn't be that way. Shyness to me, it was also different than introversion. And shyness is more of social anxiety. And that I think is more of a problem, being shy. But being introverted is not. So you can go back. Everything I'm going to say on today's podcast where I say, there's a podcast that I already covered with this, or there's research, anything else you can find on the website, abbymedcalf.com. Go to the relationship tips and tools page where I have the blog. Everything will be there, or go to the podcast page. All the resources, all the research, all the past episodes I refer to are there. And I say this every episode, and I know some of you are like, Abby, I've heard this 300 times. But I need to always repeat it because there's always new people listening, all right? And if you're watching me on YouTube, like and subscribe. Come on, give me some love. Comment. I love to hear from you. Please subscribe. I love growing this channel. It's been so much fun. And but having said that, everything's below the video that you want. So your whole world is down there. Hit the more button. All right. So let me also take a moment to point out that you might not have full-blown social anxiety disorder, but you're probably somewhere on the spectrum with your social anxiety. So I'm not here to diagnose you, and only a mental health professional can diagnose you, but I am here to help. So no matter how severe your brand of social anxiety is, today's tips are definitely going to help you. And obviously, if it's much, much more severe on the spectrum, or, you're going to need more interventions. If you're somewhere less on the continuum, you're going to, you might, some very low level interventions might work incredibly well for you right away. So throwing that out there. So let's talk about the signs and symptoms of social anxiety disorder in general. So, again, or social phobia. And there are clear diagnostic criteria in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. We are now this is the big book that mental health professionals use to diagnose. It's called DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5. It's in its 5th, and then it's TR, text revision. So it's 5th edition text revision. That's where we're at now with the DSM. And just to give you some clarity, DSM-3, so the 3rd edition, and you can quote me on this, I think, because I feel like I really know this, had homosexuality in it. How's that for crazy? As a mental disorder. So we've come a long way. There's still a long way to go. So I'm not saying that the DSM is the be all end all, because there's certainly things that, have been in there previously that we're going to find that's not actually a pathology. But it's always changing and growing, hopefully, with the times. But this is the book we use now to whenever we're diagnosing someone. And so I'm going to use the criteria from the DSM, but I'm going to talk about them in more layman's terms, so that because they're written so clinically, so that you can understand. And basically, you have to have 3 or more symptoms lasting 6 months or more to be given like an official diagnosis, although you can be mild, moderate, or severe. Again, that's on the continuum. So, and I say it's important to get an official diagnosis because there could be another mental health or physical condition responsible for whatever you're experiencing that mimics social anxiety disorder. And you really want to rule out any other problem that might be getting in the way, or you might have tried things in the past and nothing worked. And the reason is because there's another diagnosis that's underneath. You'd be shocked. You'd be surprised. So the criteria are basically persistent fear of social or performance situations. So social situations or performance situations like, speaking in front of a group or raising your hand in a meeting where you're exposed to unfamiliar people or, where there's going to be strangers there, or to possible scrutiny by others. So even though if you know the people, you're worried that they're going to be judging you. Because ultimately you fear that you'll act in a way that will somehow be embarrassing or humiliating. Number 2 is exposure to these fear situations, whatever they are, provokes anxiety, that could even take the form of a panic attack. Number 3 is that on some level you recognize that this fear is unreasonable or excessive. Like when you have moments of clarity, you get it. But, when you're in the throes of it, you don't. Number 4 is that the feared situations are either avoided completely, that's what I see a lot, or when you do them, you endure them with intense anxiety and distress. Next is that the avoidance or the anxious anticipation or the distress in the feared social or performance situation interferes significantly with your normal routine, your job, your academic functioning, your social activities, or your relationships. In other words, this is really getting in the way of your life. The fear, anxiety, or avoidance is persistent, typically lasting 6 months or more. And the fear or avoidance isn't due to direct physiological effects of a substance. In other words, obviously you might be on a drug, you might be taking drugs, or even be prescribed another medication that's making you paranoid or anxious or something. So right? It can't be that. Or it could be a general medical condition not better accounted for by another mental disorder. So basically what I said earlier is that you want to rule, we call it ruling in and ruling out. You want to rule out that this could be something else. That's what you want to do. I literally in the past, I had a client I worked with who was severely paranoid, like in a crazy way. He was hiring private investigators to follow his wife. He was setting up hidden cameras in the house. I mean, his anxiety was so bad that, he was doing illegal things because of his paranoia. and he was a drinker. And when he was, I had diagnosed him with narcissistic personality disorder. I mean, this guy was gone. And I knew he was a drinker, but these other symptoms were so severe. It was obvious he had a personality disorder also. And he went to rehab, got sober and everything was gone. There was the biggest personality change in my almost 40 years of doing this that I've ever seen happen. That when he stopped drinking and when he, really stopped, his anxiety became he still had anxiety. He had some anxiety. His was not social, his was other, but, oh my God, the most loving, fabulous husband. He and his wife are doing great still, as far as I know. Incredible. They had literally moved into separate homes at that point. It was really contentious and bad. And all of his symptoms, he is the most lovely client. He is done with me, which is wonderful. Clients are meant to move on. And just did great work once he got sober. So these other symptoms were alleviated. And it's amazing. Even someone like me with all my experience, was kind of tricked, so to speak. And so was the rehab where I sent him, which was a really good rehab. They also died. I said, check his diagnosis. They also had diagnosed him, and we were all amazed with the change. So I'm just saying, it's really important. Okay. So here's the symptoms. So that's nice. That's the DSM. That's the official. Here's what I see most typically in my clients. Okay. Here's the symptoms I see most typically. Avoidance and self-isolation are number one. I see a ton of that. And sadly, especially since the pandemic, it's been easier and easier to do. So that's becoming really problematic. Sweating, blushing, trembling, rapid heart rate, dizziness, when thinking about one of these fear situations, or when you're in one, a certain social situation. Thinking everyone talks and thinks about you and what you're doing. Avoiding eye contact. Feeling your mind going blank. I hear that a lot. They get in a social situation and it's like their mind went blank. Experiencing nausea, sick to your stomach, butterflies, again, when thinking about or in the social situation. Another thing I see a lot with people with social anxiety is that they're looking very far ahead to a future that will be terrible because of something they're doing now. And it's going to be horrible, this future, real catastrophizing and future tripping. Persistently feeling self-conscious or fearing that people will judge you negatively. That's another symptom. Worrying about everyday activities like answering emails, making calls, meetings, speaking to workers where you go to shop or get services. When this stuff is on your mind so much, again, you end up avoiding. I've got people with emails that are loaded with, thousands of emails because they just can't bring themselves to sit and look at email. If your email box is just overwhelmed, it's likely that you have some anxiety disorder happening. I know you might know just time management. Nope. It's more. Feeling under scrutiny, like others are watching and judging you. I guess I already said that. Panic attacks, obviously. Assuming you know exactly what others are thinking about you, which of course is always negative and critical. Intense worry for days, weeks, or even months before an upcoming social situation. Drinking or using drugs before or during social situations, again, and specifically to ease these symptoms or because it's the only way you feel comfortable or the only way you can go to sleep without your brain, being on fire. Catastrophizing or blowing things out of proportion, oh my gosh, if my boss sees that I'm nervous, she'll fire me and I'll never work again, that kind of stuff. All right. So by now, hopefully you'll see if you fit in these categories of social anxiety, either disorder or something on the continuum, however you want to label it. So here are my top 5 tips for overcoming social anxiety. And again, packed full, get ready. Each tip is like packed with tips. Okay. Number 1, and this, if you do nothing else, do this. Focus on relaxing your nervous system. When you're experiencing social anxiety, your brain literally gets hijacked. I did episodes previously, which again I'll link to, on the differences between stress and anxiety and the things that you do that are different for each. If you're really stressed, you do there's certain tools that apply. And if you're really if you have real anxiety, there's certain tools that apply. I'm now, today we're just talking social anxiety, but you really should go back and listen to that. And in those episodes, I went deep on what's happening in your brain. So I'm not going to do that here too much, but let me just say that something called your limbic system which is your fear part of your brain, your fear system in your brain. Your amygdala is there, your thalamus, your hypothalamus, blah, blah. And that gets overstimulated. And that's when you end up in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? That's, maybe your brain goes blank. Maybe you're tripping over your words and talking, you can't shut up. Maybe, again, you're avoiding, you're flighting, right? So there's the freeze is when your mind goes blank. Flight is when you just avoid and don't even go near something. And the fight is when you're in it and you are like talking, and you can't seem to shut up. So, and then when you try to use one of the tools that Abby taught you, one of my brilliant tools, you literally can't access that part of your thinking part of your brain, because once your limbic is lit up, when your amygdala, that fear part of your brain, is lit up, your prefrontal cortex, where your judgment, your values, your healthy tools live, that part of your brain can't light up because the fear part is lit up. They both can't be lit up at the same time. So it seems like nothing works, right? And that's like, hours later when you face palm and why didn't I think of X, or what's wrong with me? That is because your fear brain had taken over and you couldn't access. You know how later it seems so obvious? A lot of times I'll be talking to a client and I'll say, well, tell me what you could do differently now, as we're talking. And they'll come up with 10 things as the two of us are talking. And invariably they'll say to me, why couldn't I think of this then? It's like, yeah, because your brain was hijacked. So one of the best things you can do, and this is from the research, this isn't just Abby saying, okay, one of the best things you can do for social anxiety is to calm your nervous system as often as possible. And this is going to help you in two ways. First, it helps you not switch into that fear-based limbic system response to begin with, right? So remember, these two parts of the brain can't be online at the same time. So if you're in your thinking, rational, calm brain, you're less likely to get triggered, okay? You're less likely to get triggered. But if you do get triggered, if the social anxiety does come on, you can come out of it much faster and easier. So you really want to, what we call, is familiarize yourself with calming your nervous system and being in a calmer place more often. And there are many avenues to accomplish this goal. They're all well cited as evidence-based approaches in the research. So again, I'll link to all that, so you'll see it, but just you're going to have to take my word right now, and then you can go look at the research later. Number one, without fail, everywhere, and hopefully if you've already been diagnosed, you already know this one, is exercise. I know, I hate learning this. I wish the number one thing for anxiety was sitting on the couch eating Oreos, because I would be the least anxious person in the world. That would be my favorite answer to this. But no, it is exercise. First and foremost, regular, consistent exercise. There is literally nothing better you can be doing, including taking medication, from the research, than regularly raising your heart rate and getting in some physical exertion. There are all kinds of wonderful things it does to your brain, all kinds of neurotransmitters that are released, hormones in your body that all help with your emotional regulation, that help you think better, more clearly, that literally burn off, is another way of saying it, the anxiety, okay? So if social anxiety is an issue for you, if anxiety of any way is an issue for you, You need to exercise every single day without exception. Without exception. Now, I'm not saying, work your arms every single day. Obviously, that's unhealthy. I'm talking about getting some kind of aerobic activity, some kind of physical exertion every day. Think of it like a medication. Like, I have to do this every day. Going for a fast walk, doing, my favorite is jump. I keep a jump rope here in my office. I should have it so you can see it on the screen. I have a jump rope. Jump rope is the best. Jump rope really fast for a minute, 30 seconds, whatever you can do. I'm getting older now. It's a little harder. I trip. But you can also run up and down a flight of stairs. You can do very intense, something that gets your heart rate way up, but it doesn't have to be long. Okay? It doesn't have to be long. So really think of this exertion. And if that's what it's nicer though if you're doing at least 20 minutes a day. So you can't do 20 minutes of jump rope, so don't do that. But you can do 20 minutes of, sort of heavy walking on an incline on the treadmill. I do not jog, pounding on my body is not good for me. It never has been. I don't frankly think it's good for most people, but if that's what you do, God bless. I think it's bad for your structure in general, but for sure, like you can walk on a treadmill at a high incline if you want, or at a fast pace. That's a great thing to do. It's also something that's very accessible if you're overweight or something else. You can start kind of slower and work your way up, but just if you're going 1 mile an hour or whatever, but it's making you pant or sweat, that's fine. And then you can increase as you go. But I have to tell you, it's huge. Exercise. I can't say enough. If you stop listening now, that's fine, as long as you go exercise. You'll be better. Yeah. Number 2, so meditating can be very tricky for people with social anxiety disorder because it's hard to calm your mind, but visualizations or progressive relaxation exercises, such, any progressive relaxation exercise, body scans, they can work wonders. I'm going to see if I can link. I have a body scan I should be able to link to, but I also have some other it says like meditation, but they're really visualizations. So I have a visualization to stop negative thinking. I have a really wonderful one for the mornings. It's like a morning visualization that I have. I will link to those everywhere. I also have a golden light body scan, which, helps you do a scan. It's a little quicker. It's like 7 minutes. Most progressive relaxation exercises are about 20. And basically what they are is that, you focus, let's say, on your head, and you really focus like on the muscles, even your forehead, and squeezing them, or, feeling your ears and relaxing them, feeling your jaw, relaxing it, chin, relaxing, you go all the way down your body. They take about 20 minutes. And they're incredibly effective for, again, getting your body into that nervous system calmer. I'm also going to link to a video I did called 3 Tips to Calm Yourself in Seconds. Every single person listening should go, get to the video, again, under wherever all the places I said it'll be. It's called 3 Tips to Calm Yourself in Seconds, or just put my name in with that title on YouTube and it'll pop up. And I have 3 exercises there, a shoulder shrug and some other things that you can do in seconds that will help calm your nervous system. Number 4 is to stay away from or limit caffeine, alcohol, energy drinks, and other drugs. At the very least, keep caffeine limited to mornings only, and I mean really mornings. I would say nothing after 11 a.m., 12 p.m. at the very latest. Also remember that nicotine is a stimulant, so quitting smoking or vaping of nicotine will also be extremely helpful. And there's, a ton of research on this. If you smoke pot to deal with your anxiety, again, if that works and you're not anxious anymore, like you go into things and you're not anxious, the problem is it does alter your perceptions. It's kind of like drinking. I don't know why people think smoking pot is better. Like if someone had a couple drinks before a meeting, I would have issue, for a work meeting. But for some reason, people think they can smoke pot before school or a meeting and it's okay. It's the same, people. So, and I know by people who love pot, if you're listening, you probably love pot if you have social anxiety, although pot might also make you very paranoid, as it did me back in the day, and not relaxed at all. But I know people get very attached to pot. And if pot is making your life better, then I don't even know why you're listening. So I would say if you're listening, then I would hope you be open to something else to make your life better besides pot. There's too many other side effects and things that go with it, with an altered perception of what's around you that is not true of other medications. Okay. So, that's all I'm trying to say here. I've got people who sort of diagnose themselves. They start smoking pot. They get themselves a support animal that they call a support animal, who's really just an animal. They want to walk around with them. There's licensures to get for support animals and things like that, or certificates, etc. But again, see a therapist. Don't diagnose yourself. I don't know how much to say this. I'm giving you some tough love right now. You might be even just stopping the video right now, like, screw Abby. That's fine. But you're listening because you're not where you need to be and want to be. So I'm opening up a discussion with you that maybe the way you've been doing it isn't the right way. I know you're attached to these things. I'm not saying you have to get rid of your dog or cat. I'm saying let's try to bring in some other things, and let's look at, how you can really feel better. If what you're doing isn't working, then we need something else. Number 5 under this is to add more omega-3 fats to your diet. Again, a lot of good research on this. These types of fatty acids have been shown to support brain health and improving your mood, including your ability to handle anxiety. The best sources of fatty fish. Salmon, herring, mackerel, anchovies, sardines. Jews love all these. I'm surprised we ever have anxiety, but we do. Seaweed, flaxseed, walnuts also, things like that. Get quality sleep. Being well rested will absolutely help you keep your emotional regulation better, including keeping anxiety at bay. Number 7 under this is get yourself into a mindfulness practice. And I have so much on mindfulness. Download my mindfulness starter kit. Get yourself going with that. I have so much. Just do mindfulness keyword search anywhere with my name, and you will get a ton of free information about how to do that. So I'm not going to cover it here. Number 8 is learning to control your breathing. I did an excellent episode with Dr. Eric Pepper. I know, Dr. Pepper, best name ever. It's called How Changing Your Breathing and Posture Can Change Your Life. And his research is impeccable. He's amazing. But anywhere you look, you will see that changing your breathing and looking at how you breathe, just taking deeper breaths, longer, slower exhalations is going to help you. So I've already done so much on that, so I'm not going to do it here. So that's number 1. How do you like that? That is my first tip. All of that. How's that for love? Okay. Again, and if you love, it'd be really nice to support me by subscribing, to the podcast wherever you download. Especially you Apple users, they don't do automatic downloads anymore. You have to change that. Or just liking it, leaving a review for the podcast really helps me. You can help by spending money, buying one of my books or a mug or, a notebook or something else. You can do it that way, but you can do it for free. You don't have to spend a penny to support me. And you can, follow me on social media or, again, YouTube is really where I spend the most time, or comment or whatever. All of these things really help. So if you're feeling the love, we are in a reciprocal relationship, you and I. If you just sit there and just take things in and take, it creates entitlement. And entitlement, that's why people comment under my videos, get to the point, or whatever. Like they bitch and moan about the free stuff I'm giving. That's entitlement. That is a crazy place to be. And if you've gotten this far, hopefully you are not there. So yeah, you should be giving to me too, as I give to you. That's relationships. That's reciprocity. If you find value, show me it's valuable. Just send me a comment. I love it, saying that you find it valuable. That to me would be enough. How do you like that? Again, it just feels good. I read them and I love them. Okay. Tip number 2 is to face it, don't avoid it. Avoiding people and situations is the hallmark of people living with social anxiety disorders. So one of the best things you can do to combat social anxiety or social phobia is to face those things you fear instead of avoiding them. If you're going to become more comfortable with certain people, in situations, you'll need to start practicing. That's how you're not going to be comfortable right away. It's not going to happen. You might never get fully comfortable, but you'll get more comfortable. So, as you already know, once you do the thing, you almost always realize that you built it up too much in your head and that it was way easier or better than you anticipated. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So think of taking one small step at a time. One of my clients signed up for a class she needed to take while in session with me. That's how she had to do it. Great. We then assigned her a buddy for that first day of going to the class. It was for her job. She needed this other certificate. And so she asked her sister to go into work late the day that she had to take this class. And her sister dropped her off at the school to take the class. I said, don't raise your hand. Don't do anything crazy while you're there. And she didn't. She just made sure she got there because that was the thing to do. If going to parties or social gatherings is frightening, think of starting with something small or even something you host yourself, or go with a good friend and let the host know beforehand, oh my gosh, you know what? I can only stay an hour, but I really want to come. You don't have to say why. Don't say why. I've got so much going on that day, but I really want to come. I want to say hi. So, but I'll be there at the beginning for an hour. Also, there's less people if you go early. And then, I'm going to have to go. It's great. That's great. Great way to go. And don't try to face your biggest or worst fear out of the gate. You got to build up. And I'm actually getting to that with tip number 3, which is more specific, which is using something. I call it the anxiety ladder. I think that's where it's called everywhere. I didn't make this up. This is something, again, from the research, but I don't remember the term that's usually used, but I call it the anxiety ladder, and I do think that's what everybody calls it. So what you do to use an anxiety ladder is that first you're going to make a list of a particular, you're going to make a list. So think of a particular situation you fear. Okay, that's what you do first. Think of a particular situation. You can make a list of situations you fear and then just take one of them for this. And you can do this with each situation. So you're going to take the thing you fear and then list what you fear about it. So, and this just came up recently with one of my clients, but it might be you're afraid to get a new job or to take a class that would advance your career, let's say. Okay. So that's where she was. So your list about that situation would include, and this was some things she said and some other things I've heard, making friends with new coworkers, right? The idea of a new job or taking this new class and having to be, to advance her skill set. She kept thinking of like, oh my God, I got to make new friends with new coworkers. I have to have a new boss, things I said before. Asking a teacher a question, raising your hand in class or in a meeting, being asked to do a presentation or group project, right? You always have to do those. Oh my gosh. Being called on in class or a meeting to answer a question, sitting at lunch with no one to speak to, eating or drinking in front of others during the break. Okay. These are all things. And again, I've mentioned those before, but these all might be things. So it's whatever it is for you, whatever those fears are, just write them down. And it could be obviously a very different situation. It could be going to a party or, speaking in front of other people or whatever, right? Or leaving your house to go to an appointment. It could be a lot of things. So now you're going to create steps for addressing those fears. You're going to start very small because you're at the bottom of the ladder. And then you ease yourself up the ladder to bigger things. And there's no race with this. You might repeat a rung of the ladder a few times before you feel ready to take that next step. But you also have to make sure you're not avoiding for too long. So it is a little bit of this is again why it's good to have a therapist or someone you're working with, because they can sort of help you go, it's time. It's the little push to get to the next rung, right? And I have my clients make 10 steps. Okay, so 10 steps, 1 through 10. So step 1 with this client was making a point to say good morning or hello. And we started with one coworker or classmate each day because she ended up taking the class first, but we had her actually improving at work too at the same time. So saying hello to one person, that might be that first rung of the ladder. And then then saying hello to two people and then three people. You don't have to go above three, but each day, just good morning, nodding your head, hey, something each morning, but making a point to do it each day. Maybe your class starts at 5 at night, hey, good evening or good to see you or something, right? That's step one. Step two, ask a low hanging fruit question to a coworker or classmate, right? So some low hanging fruit question. And, you might ask where they live or what they did over the weekend or any other easy question. Then next step would be to sit near other students in class or to take your break at work where others are congregating. Okay. Just that. And next step could be making small talk on one of those breaks. This could be about, pets are a good one. Pets are so good. People seem to open up when they talk about their pets. So you could, you might feel silly sitting there going, do you have any pets? Right. But you might be like, oh my God, there's dog hair in my lunch, which there probably is if you have a dog or a cat. Right. Oh my gosh, my cat makes me crazy sometimes, or God, I always have cat hair everywhere, right? You can say that with someone close by and then it's easy, right? Because they'll probably say something like, oh my God, my cat too, or yeah, I got a dog, same thing happens, or they might just say, oh my gosh, and then you can just say, do you have pets? Oh, you're smart not to, or something, right? Or it could be sports. Sports are a good one, some team you follow or whatever, oh my gosh, I'm so depressed still from the game last night, the Mets lost or the Mets won. That's when I'm very happy. I love my New York Mets baseball. Do you know what I mean? Current events, some current event could be anything like that. Not politics or religion, obviously, something light, or even the weather would be fine. Right? So again, just simple, easy, oh God, I'm so nice to be in the air conditioning in the office. It's so hot outside, right? You're making what John Gottman calls a bid. You're just throwing things out there. Some people will ignore the bid. They'll be like, and they'll go back. But hopefully you've, watched enough or already have people smiling at you enough that you'll make the go with someone who's likely to reciprocate. Or if someone's doing it with you, get into it. Don't just go, yeah, it's fine, or yeah, the weather's good, and go back to your lunch. Try to extend a little bit. Next step might be to ask a classmate or a coworker to get a coffee or, a drink after class or after work, right? Then you might ask to exchange numbers with a classmate or coworker, right? Just, hey, can I have your number in case I miss notes in class? Or, I was thinking of something funny the other day. Again, you're already at this point where you've had a little bit of a relationship. Hey, do you mind if I get your number? I can text you sometime. Maybe we'll have coffee, something like that. And then you might send a text or start an exchange with a classmate or coworker. That could be another step, right? Do you see how these are all really, and you can have these steps wherever you want. Again, you can do things a couple times before you go to the next step. And then another step, now I'm texting you, we've had a few exchanges, we might go out for lunch or dinner or drinks with a group of classmates or coworkers. Maybe we'll have more than one person there. Yeah. And again, if you're introverted, this is where you sort of know, you might think, I don't really want to do big groups ever, but you might at least do 2 or 3 people. So introverts, and that's the thing, introverts like being social. This isn't about not being social. Introverts are social. They talk to people. They actually really love sometimes very long conversations with one person. And that's the difference. One of the differences you can note with social anxiety or introversion. The social anxiety often is still there. Once an introvert gets warm with somebody, sometimes you can't shut them up. But when they're, but the anxiety happens when there's a lot of people, or, do you see the difference? But with some of the social anxiety, even after they're getting to know you a little bit, they still act very anxious and skittish. There's a good criteria for which one you might be. And then another step might be to share more personal information about yourself with a classmate or coworker, right? That might be a final step to actually let them get to know you. But do you see where I did here? I don't even know if I gave you 10 there or less, but do you see how we're just getting on the rung of the ladder from very tiny things, saying hello, to actually sharing on a more personal level with someone? But that was 10 steps to that. I think people think like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't want to, I talk to a lot of people who are in drug and alcohol recovery, and they're like, well, I don't want to talk about my, especially on dates or something else. There's a lot of anxiety about it. It's like, you don't have to say anything. You're going out to lunch, or you're going to dinner, or having tea at a coffee shop. You don't have to talk about, even if the subject comes up. Like, do you want to go for a drink later? You can say, yeah, I'd love to go out. I don't actually drink alcohol right now, but I'm happy. And they might say, well, why? And you'll say, just not doing it right now. Like, you don't have to go into the reasons why in the moment. It's none of their business. Or make up something, I just don't always feel good when I'm drinking, so I've decided to stop for a while. Or, I'm on a health kick right now, just no alcohol. I'm trying to limit my sugar. I don't know. You don't have to give everybody everything when you don't know them. You just don't. And again, I know it gets weird, like lying to someone, but then don't, if that feels so uncomfortable to you, then just sort of cover. You just don't have to say it all, or just say, I'm just not right now. That's it. Just, there you go. Tip number 4 is to focus on others, not yourself. Focus on other people, not yourself. So when you're in a social situation that makes you anxious or nervous, that negative self-conscious mind, those thoughts start, right? She's judging me. He thinks I'm stupid. And that's what leads to anxious, upset feelings, because we feel the way we think. Right? So whatever you're thinking leads to these bad feelings. So all these thoughts and feelings have you way too inwardly focused, and you can't even listen at that point to what people are saying, right? So yes, you might say something you regret. It's actually true because you're so up here, you're so in your head. So to fully concentrate on what other people are saying is your goal in a conversation, and it really takes you out of your head. So you want to switch from an internal focus to an external one, and it means listening and connecting with what others are saying instead of focusing on what they're thinking about you. That's the difference, okay? That's what you're doing. So my favorite tool here is to ask questions about what they're saying, because you really have to focus to do that. So if this is your goal, right, you'll need to focus on what they're saying and hopefully even get into the flow of the conversation and forget to be so self-conscious. So stop listening to your negative thoughts and instead listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're saying. So with, again, socially anxious clients, I'll say to them, all right, you're going to go in and you set that intention before. I'm going to really listen well to what others are saying. I'm going to be and remember, if you're having a mindfulness practice, this will be easier. I'm going to really focus on what they're saying, and I'm going to think of questions to ask. And if asking a question makes you too anxious, that's fine. But an easy question is, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about it. Or, oh my gosh, what's another time you felt that way? Or, oh, that sounds so interesting. Again, tell me more about it. That is a great way. And then I'm telling you, if you can just relax into that a tiny bit, tell me more about it, you will find yourself finding easy questions to ask because you'll be interested. You'll be interested, and you might even share, oh my gosh, I've always thought of skydiving. I've been too nervous to do it. Tell me how you did it. Like, how did you get the nerve? Are you afraid to do it? Or did you always feel like you wanted to? Tell me more. There's great, rich conversations here. And what you really want to do is focus on being genuine and attentive to their thoughts instead of yours. That's it. You want to focus on being genuine and attentive to their thoughts instead of your thoughts. And by the way, this is how people like you. When I'm sitting in a session with someone, I'm not thinking at all of what they're thinking about what I'm saying. I am so focused on listening and understanding and watching their body language and hearing the inflection in their voice. I'm so 100% focused on that. I don't even know. Sometimes, every now and then I'll look because I do all my sessions on Zoom, and I make myself small, and the other person is there. I can't even see myself. And at the end of a session, every now and then, as I'm saying goodbye, I've caught myself, and my hair is all weird. I've got some hair sticking up or something, or my shirt has gotten weird. It's fine. It's fine. I sort of laugh. Hopefully there's no like spinach in my teeth or something, and it happens even as I'm doing these. I'm not watching myself, do these, what becomes a video on YouTube. I'm certainly not looking at myself. That would be very distracting. And sometimes afterwards, the whole time I had lipstick on my teeth or something, it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go back and do that. But if you're having trouble doing this, if you're having trouble focusing on them, not you, I would say to use a grounding technique to bring yourself to the present moment and then focus on what they're saying. And I have a list of grounding techniques that you can download. They're all evidence-based grounding techniques that help in the moment. My favorite example of one is to think about the color blue and then name anything blue you see. And what that does is ground you to the present moment and get your brain out of fight or flight or freeze. And but I have a list of 5 of them. You can download them anywhere you're listening to this, and again, or at the website. And there you go. And to be completely transparent, whenever you download something from me, you will be put on my love letter list, which is a weekly love letter. That's all it is. I don't sell anything. I don't bombard you with 50 emails asking you to buy something. Nothing. It is a weekly letter that I write to the folks on my list that is meant to inspire you and to help you feel motivated, to help you think differently about your life. That's all it is. I know in these times it's hard to believe that people are just giving you something. But that's what I do. And if you've been following me for any period of time, I give. I love to give. You can spend money here too. I also love money. I'm not going to lie about that. It's great if you spend money and you support me. I can do more the more you support me. But it's also I've built things so that you don't have to. If that's not something you're going to find helpful, there's nothing I ask you to pay money for that I don't think won't help you make your life for the better. But if you don't want to, it's really okay. But you will be put on the love letter list and you can just unsubscribe. There's many thousands of people on that list. I will not notice if you unsubscribe. It is okay. Although I would say give it a chance. See if you like it before you unsubscribe. You might be pleasantly surprised. It takes just a few minutes a week and I tell a little story or something. And it really makes me happy because I get just hundreds of emails from around the world saying how much you like them or how much something hit or I really needed to hear this today, Abby. And that is my joy place, my heart place. Okay. Last and final tip is to get professional help and possibly start taking medication. So as I stated earlier, if social anxiety is interrupting your life, I'd love for you to seek out a qualified mental health provider to help you. I know not everyone has access, as I said, to such people, which is why I'm listing this last. But as I stated earlier, if you had a physical illness that was affecting you daily, I know you'd find a way to seek out professional help. So, really think about this. Therapy is a wonderful tool to help with moving through, social anxiety and difficult situations and feelings. And sometimes you'll be referred to a psychiatrist for medications. I always stress that medication alone is not enough for successfully dealing with social anxiety disorder or really any mental health condition. I compare it easily to something like diabetes. If you're diabetic, you can be prescribed insulin or metformin or glucophage or something else to deal with your diabetes. But if you don't change your diet, if you don't check your blood sugar, if you don't exercise or work on keeping the stress low in your life, the medication is not going to be effective. You're going to still have a lot of problems with your diabetes and a lot of physical and mental health problems. So you have to do more than one thing. It's just not okay on its own. So, again, mental health disorders are the same when you think about it. So let's talk about different types of medication. A lot of people are confused about that, and I want to see if I can shed some light. I also want to say, which I've mentioned before, psychologists like me we do not prescribe medication. I know a lot about medication because it interests me tremendously, but a lot of psychologists don't. Psychiatrists are medical doctors. They went to school to be a regular medical doctor. Like they had to do, everything a regular medical doctor does. They had to cut open cadavers and learn all about the body. Everything a medical doctor does, a psychiatrist did. They went to medical school, they got a medical degree, but in the last stages of all the rounds and their residencies and all that, they get a specialty in psychiatry. And psychiatrists are the ones who can prescribe medications. Again, psychologists can't. Now, other people can prescribe medications like physician's assistants and nurse practitioners. But again, I wouldn't use anyone who doesn't have a specialty. A regular MD can, your regular MD that you go to for your general checkup every year can certainly prescribe any of the medications I'm saying. The problem is this is not their specialty. If you had cancer, you would not go to a regular general practitioner. You would go to an oncologist. You would go to a specialist. And again, don't demean this. Don't demean this. Ask to see a psychiatrist if you can. If you have those means, see an actual psychiatrist and hopefully someone specializing in anxiety, because psychiatrists can specialize in different things, right? Just like regular general, medical doctors can specialize in cancer treatment or, neurology or whatever, okay? So different types of medications can be very effective in treating anxiety disorders. So the most common are these. So most common are antidepressants. So there's SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and SNRIs, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Beta blockers, again, I'll talk about all these separately. And then there's anti-anxiety medications, really benzodiazepines. So let's talk about each group. So SSRIs and SNRIs are most commonly used to treat depression, but they can also help with social anxiety symptoms. So remember that most of these medications take a long time to work, several weeks. So, this isn't an overnight cure. You can also have, of course, varied side effects. So you really do need to work closely with a psychiatrist in the beginning. Once you're stabilized, you can see a prescribing doctor 2 to 4 times a year or as needed. It doesn't have to go that often. But until you get stabilized on a med and it's really working, you might need to go even every week or once a month or something like that. The most common SSRIs used are Lexapro for sure. What is it? Acetalopram. Is that what that one is? I'm pretty sure. Because they use the generic names a lot, what you might see on your medication bottle, but that's Lexapro. Paxil, which is paroxetine. Zoloft, which is sertraline. And the most common SNRIs I see used are Effexor, which is venlafaxine, and Cymbalta, which is duloxetine. So those are the most common ones. But you might be on a different one, and that's fine. I'm just throwing it out there in case you're wondering. Beta blockers, which are more commonly used for people with heart conditions, are sometimes prescribed for social anxiety because they can really help control some of the physical symptoms of social anxiety, right? The increased heart rate, blood pressure, shaking, sweating. And I see beta blockers mostly used for any kind of performance anxiety, right, type of social anxiety disorder, but they're used for all kinds. And the beta blockers I see most commonly prescribed for social anxiety are propranolol and atenolol. And I will say using beta blockers to help with anxiety is considered an off-label use of these medications. A lot of medications are used off-label, but they're very effective. Benzodiazepines are kind of the last, class I see, and these are Xanax, right? What is Xanax? Alprazolam, Ativan, which is lorazepam, clonazepam, which actually that's the generic. What is that? That's Rivotril. And then, of course, our favorite Valium, which is diazepam. Notice all the PAMs. Usually anything that ends with PAM is a is a benzo of some kind. These are all anti-anxiety sedative medications. These work immediately, unlike SSRIs or SNRIs. Benzos work right away. Immediately they will reduce anxious feelings and are generally used for sure for people if you have a panic attack or you feel one coming on. These are very effective. However, many people, so because I'm sure you're saying, well, why wouldn't I only take those then? Why would I even take these other medications that take so long? Well, because many of the benzos, people almost always build a tolerance to these medications, so you need more and more to work. They are also definitely addictive when used regularly, and you can't stop if you're using them regularly, you can't stop using them cold turkey because you could have a seizure. So these are super powerful medications. I mean, benzos are very powerful. You should think of them like that. It's not safe generally to drive or to operate machinery when you're taking them. It's depending on the dosage, but it's really something I need you to think about. Hold on. Yeah, blow my nose. That's right. You can handle it. Okay, so I do not love and a lot of my clients are in sobriety, so not a lot, about a portion of my clients are in sobriety. So for sure, if you have any kind of drug or alcohol issue, you would not be taking a benzo, hopefully. You need to be under the direct care of a psychiatrist, and you need to be completely honest with them about any side effects, about how you're feeling on them, all the things, because again, they're so powerful. And in addition, you can't use alcohol or other drugs when you're using these meds. I mean, there's just a lot of caveats when you're using a benzo. So I would rather you, again, speak to a mental health professional. If that's what they say, fine. But maybe think of that as a last line of defense, not a first. And again, maybe only think of them for panic attacks, because again, very effective. So, but whether it's therapy or medication, you need to remember that both generally take some time to work. So you also might need to try multiple, antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds, or multiple different medications or different dosages until you find the right fit for you. So it's really important to be patient in the process and to keep making, incremental changes as you move forward. Okay. That was a lot, I know. Now, if you come and to the website or under YouTube, you're going to see resources for anxiety disorder in different countries, because I have a lot of you from all over the world, which thank you for being here. So if you go look, I have websites in Australia and Great Britain, and I think New Zealand even is on there, obviously the United States, Canada. So there's a lot of places you can get support and education in different countries. And I tried to find, or support groups. I have one link, if you're in Puerto Rico or South Africa, there's some support groups. So I tried to do as well as I could without going too deep into having some different resources for all of my wonderful international people here and for those here in the United States. And again, if you want to come over, you can download the grounding exercises. I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend you listening to my previous episodes on stress and anxiety, which will be linked to everywhere. So there you have it. Oh my gosh. We're 2 episodes deep into season 7. I thank you so much for writing in and telling me what you want to hear about. Again, I've got, such a great season coming for you. I'm really excited. My time off was so energizing, and a lot of you checked in with me, which, I'm going to cry. Just made me, and you were like, sorry to bug you on your time off, but I wanted to say hi or say thank you. I please, you're never bugging me, ever bugging me. And I apologize to anyone if I didn't get back right away. Sometimes it takes me a minute because there's a lot of you who listen and respond, but I really do my best to make it a priority. I know I don't do it perfectly, so please stick with me. Please be patient. Try again. But I love having you here. I really appreciate our relationship so much. You fill my heart. You make my life so much better being in it. You really do. So thank you. I love you so much. Have an amazing week, and we'll talk real soon.